Okay, so I'm going to work through the examples on sine 2 and sine 3. I'm going to work through the even questions. So starting on sine 2, question 2. So I look at my transformations and I see negative pi over 3. So remember, if it's inside parentheses like that, it's shifting to the right. And if I look down here on the axis, I see 0 and I see pi over 2, but I don't see pi over 3. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each line is 1/6 pi, or pi over 6. So here's pi over 6. Here's 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3. So we're shifting 2 lines this way to pi over 3. Okay. I did not change the period of the graph. So I know at pi over 3 plus 2 pi, whatever that is, that's where my graph will end. Okay, so this is 7 pi over 3. Okay, another way to look at it is I shifted 2 lines from 0, and my graph normally ends at 2 pi, so I shift 2 lines from 2 pi. So I'm going to draw a line. So I know my graph has to start and end on those red lines. Okay? I didn't change the amplitude. I'm not reflecting. And so my normal sine pattern holds true. So between these 2 points, it also crosses in the middle. Between those 2 points, it goes up all the way to 1, and between the next 2 points, it goes down to -1. Connect your points. There's question 2. Question 4, I see plus pi over 6. Because it's positive, that's really shifting it to the left. Pi over 6. Remember, each of these lines is counting by pi over 6. So my starting point is going to be right here. Okay. Normally, your graph goes from 0 to 2 pi, but I'm shifting it to the left pi over 6. So negative pi over 6 plus 2 pi to find your endpoint. Okay, so that's 11 pi over 6. So you have 2 options. You can go to 11 pi over 6, which is right here, or you move to the left 1. So you go to 2 pi where it normally should end, and you move to the left 1. So there's my boundaries. Start and end on those 2 lines. Right in the middle of those 2, it's also going to cross. Between the first 2 points, it goes up. Between the second 2 points, it goes down. Connect the points. Question 6. Question 6 has a positive pi over 3. So we're going to shift to the left pi over 3. So I'm going to go to pi over 3. Okay. There's no number in front of x or in front of theta, so it should be ending at 2 pi. But because I shifted it left, it's actually going to end 2 lines in front of that. Okay. If you want to work it out mathematically, you have negative pi over 3 because that's where it's starting. My period is still 2 pi, which will give you 5 pi over 3. So my graph should end at 5 pi over 3. Now be careful. This graph has an amplitude of 3. So that means we are going to go up to 3 and down to -3. Okay, so I've just boxed off what I'm going to call a window. One full cycle of my graph should fall within that window. So it's going to start on the axis and end on the axis. Right in the middle of those, it's also going to cross. Between the first 2 points, it goes all the way up to 3. Between the second 2 points, it goes all the way down to -3. Connect the dots. Okay, number 8. If there is a value over here that is our D value, you need to start with that. So that +1, go +1 on the y-axis and draw your new sinusoidal axis. Also, we have a 2 out front, which is going to change the amplitude to 2. So from my new axis, I'm going to go up 2 and down 2. Okay, and also be careful with that negative. Okay, so here's my B value of pi over 2, which tells me that I'm shifting to the left, pi over 2. So I'm going to go to pi over 2. Okay, so normally it should cross at 2 pi, but because I've shifted it to the left, pi over 2, I'm now at 3 pi over 2. If you need to work it out mathematically, at -pi over 2, the period is 2 pi, so I'm adding 2 pi to it. So now my graph should end at 3 pi over 2. So I need to have one full cycle in that window that I just boxed off. I know that it starts on the axis and ends on the axis, or starts over here at -pi over 2 and ends over here at 3 pi over 2 on that new sinusoidal axis, that midline. Between those 2 points, it's also going to cross on the midline. Between the first 2 points, it should go up, but because it's reflected, it's going to go down. So between the next 2 points, it has to go up. Moving to Sine 3, moving to worksheet Sine 3. So this value right here in front of theta is going to change the period. So I do 2 pi divided by my B value of 1/2 divided by the B value of 1/2. 2 pi divided by 1/2 is 4 pi. Okay, so my starting point is still over here at 0. I didn't shift it left or right. But now I know that I'm stretching it out to 4 pi. Notice that we didn't have any other transformations besides the period change. So it's going to start at 0, 0, and it's going to end at 4 pi, 0. Remember your sign pattern between those 2 points. It's going to cross in the middle again. Between the first 2, it goes up. Between the second 2, it goes down. Connect the dots. Number 4. First of all, there should be parentheses right here. That pi is shifting left and right, not up and down. If it's ever pi, it's a left or right transformation. Numbers 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, that would be an up or down. Okay. So here we have a C value. We have a C value of pi. Okay. So it's a positive pi, which is going to tell me to shift to the left. Pi. This 2 right here is going to change my period. So I'm going to do 2 pi divided by the B value. And and I just get pi. Okay, so negative pi, I know when I get 1 pi from that, so starting at negative pi, it's going to take pi to make 1 full period. So when I get to 0, I should have a full cycle of my graph. Okay, so our sine patterns start in the middle, end in the middle. Right between those two, it also crosses in the middle. Between the first 2 points, it goes up. Between the second 2 points, it goes down. And draw your curve. Okay, last one, number 6. We have all of our transformations here. So we're going to start with that negative 2. So I go to negative 2, and I draw my new axis. My amplitude is a half, so from that negative 2, up a half, down a half. Remember, if it looks like this, you want to rewrite it. So I have 1/2 sine 2. I want to put a parenthesis, theta or x, whichever one you want to use, plus, remember you have to do pi over 3 divided by the number that you're factoring out. Okay, so pi over 3 divided by 2 is pi over 6. Close your parentheses, and then minus 2. There actually should be 2 sets of parentheses right there. Okay, so now I can look and see that I'm shifting pi over 6 to the left. So I'm going to draw where I need to start at pi over 6 to the left. And then I have to check the b value. So normally I make a full cycle in 2 pi, but there's a b value of 2. So now I'm making a full cycle in pi. So if I'm starting at negative pi over 6, and I know it's going to take pi to make 1 full cycle, that means that 5 pi over 6 should be the end point of the first cycle. So I'm going to go to 5 pi over 6. And draw another line. So the window in the middle is where I need to draw 1 full cycle. So starting in the middle, starting on that new sinusoidal axis at negative pi over 6, and then it has to end at 5 pi over 6. Between those 2 points, it's going to cross again. Between the first 2, it goes up. Between the second 2, it goes down. And connect the dots.